Sanibonani, Dumelang, and welcome to your #1 youth show. We are live on SABC 1 and SABC Lihaye. We are talking about bursary schemes. It's the beginning of the year. A lot of students will venture out into higher education institutions, hoping to further their studies. Many will need Nsfas to assist them in doing so. A lot of students seemed unsatisfied. Nsfas ngayo izinto lilishwa nyani kubhlungu. That's what we are talking about today, hoping that we find a solution kule ngxabakaxaka. Dimleke ukhelosaka lubisi uMatlongoti. I'm not alone, I'm with Uliema.
Gosika Matlongoti ngacho Mzansi Africa, and of course I am Uliema, your host as well, right here on Expressions. Thanks very much for joining us. And that's most certainly true, Nakolosa, because namhlanje on the show we are of course going to be looking at the challenges with the student funding in South Africa. Now Nsfas is still attempting to finalize the payments of outstanding 2023 allowances for about, guess it, 20,000 students. Meanwhile, government has set aside a 3.8 billion rand budget to establish a comprehensive student fund within the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which is Nsfas, to of course assist deserving students trapped in the missing middle category. Perhaps not everyone will obviously be available or even be able to get that particular funding. Are there other options out there, particularly for abantu abatsha or even students at large? Now, our producer, Azaria Koza, filed this report for us.
Njengoba bangaphezu kwezinkulungwane ezingama570 570,000 abafundi bakamatikuletsheni abaphumelele ngamabachelor, kuseyinkinga enkulu kwamukelwa kwabo emanyuvesi akuleli. Kanti nokukhokha kweNSfas sekudlule isikhathi kunomthelela ongemuhle nje uma qala unyaka wezokufunda kuleli kanye nokubhalisela ukufunda.
Our universities are poised to meet their NDP enrollment target of 1.62 million by 2030. We've taken a decision to further massify our TVET college system towards the goal of 2.5 million enrollment in this sector, although this will require significantly higher levels of investment.
Ungqongqoshe uDokotela uBlade Nzimande uphinde waveza isu njengomnyango elizolisebenzisa ukuxazulula izinkinga ezibakhona uma ngabe kuqhubeka uhlelo lokubhalisela ukufunda ezikhungweni zemfundo ephakeme kuleli.
On the 2024 State of Readiness, we have activated an operations room and observatory to ensure timeous reporting and discussion of challenges experienced during the registration period. We have developed a monitoring tool to assess registration.
Ungqongqoshe uqinisekiseni ukuthi unxuse iNSfas ukuthi ixazulule ngokusheshsha zonke izingqinamba enazo nezinye izikhungo. Namhlanje lapha ku-Expressions siyabuza ukuthi ingabe sekuyisikhathi sokuthi abafundi balapha kwelengabadi babhukule, basukume, bazame ezinye indlela zokuthola inkece ezizokwazi ukubasiza ukuthi baqhubekele phambili nemfundo na?
Well, there you have it, Mbugelo Expressions. That is precisely the conversation that we are going to be diving deep into. And by the way, thanks very much to our producer, Azaria Koza, for that informative insert right there. But, you know, as we kickstart this conversation, I do want to particularly say that we hope that Nsfas will try to sort out all the funding issues, hopefully before the academic year. But, you know, this has also seen the rise of other private institutions or even private companies coming to the table to try and assist abantwana ingakumbi students, because unfortunately, Nsfas is not pitching up at all. But to, of course, help me unpack this discussion a little bit further, namhlanje on the show, I have student representatives, first of which is Unhlonipho Nxumalo, and also it is Usisekelo Simelane, who is the SRC Deputy President, also part of, you know, student representative. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I think let me start with you, Nhlonipho. We are talking about, you know, Nsfas, but unfortunately, we can't continue talking about Nsfas every now and again, because like I said, the academic year is about to commence. Perhaps, don't you think that with the challenges that most students are facing, that is opening a need for them to pursue other different funding alternatives?
Definitely, that is opening that route. But however, we need to be conscious that the NDP identified education as the tool to reverse the injustices of the past, and therefore Nsfas is an institution that is given the responsibility to carry the poor and the working class so that they can be able to access education. So Nsfas is very, very critical to be capacitated, because wants to address those injustices of the past, and particularly for the poor and the working class. However, we do need to venture into other alternatives. Sometimes you would see that we encourage students that they should also consider ventures like Phoenix. We've seen Phoenix working for students. Social media, people must use social media constructively. There are students who get funding through social media. If you just post your story that I'm currently enrolled for this and this and this and that, people get funding from that. And there are also other ventures like SITA, municipal. There are also municipal bursaries, provincial bursaries. GSRA is still open for accepting applications. So we also encourage students to look into other ventures and not only Nsfas.
And then coming to you, Sisekelo, I guess we need to also trace it back to what are some of those particular challenges which students have been facing, which even exacerbated the situation that we currently find ourselves in today.
True. I think the biggest part of it is the academic aspect. You find that a lot of students fail or struggle to meet the academic criteria that most of these funding institutions normally bring up front. Moreover, you get students who can't provide the necessary documentation that they need for them to get access to funding. Also, I think lack of knowledge as well. Students are uninformed. They don't know they have access to all these things. More than just Nsfas or GCRA, there are other things such as private companies. We have your Standard Banks, we have your SASOs. There's other companies that provide funding for students, your AVBOBs. But at the end of the day, students are uninformed of these things. And I think it all comes down to ignorance. In some, yes. Exactly.
All right. And then, Ndate Dumsani, I think then we ought to ask this question, that don't you perhaps also think then that fellow students, really rely on the government too much, that they don't even want to entertain the possibilities of other alternatives for funding?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the question. So, yes, we can say maybe it's over-reliance, but I think to what he just said now, the access to information, if we promote access to information, I think that's a good starting place. I'll give you an example. For instance, we at Fundi, we have a portal called Fundi Connect, and it's not selling anything. All it is a listing of bursaries, financial education, how to do a basic budget. And some of that information is not available, it's not public, it's publicly available, but not in institutions. And let me explain what I mean with that. We all went through degrees. I went through a degree as well. But in my degree, there's no financial education. There's no module which says when you want to help a fellow student, go to such a portal. And I think if we begin to actually raise the awareness on the availability of those options, like there are companies, there are corporates out there that have got bursaries, and sometimes they find that even the sitters, they've got amounts available, but they don't have the students to register for those.
But now let's talk particularly about Fundi. So would you say Fundi is a full bursary type of, a funding, or is it a loan?
Fundi has both. So we've got one business which is the loans, and we've got another part which is bursary administration. And as part of that, we now have extra things which are value adds, like information on available bursaries from other corporates. So not only are we providing the service ourselves, we also are aggregating on available bursaries out there for corporates. Yeah.
All right, we shall most definitely, I beg your pardon, expand on that particular conversation after the ad break. But for now, though, like I said, we quickly need to go to an ad break rather. This is Expressions. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You are still watching Expressions right here on SABC One Mzansi. For sure, we are still talking about student funding crisis here in South Africa. And I mean, with a lot of issues that students are facing, should they actually consider other options, other bursary options? And I mean, you wrote Ekaya waspalela galomba esitetanga, and yes, we are going to be reading some of your comments. We have one coming coming from Busisi, where 43439. Utiena, my status says funded, but my fees are not paid and no allowance was given to me since last year. Guys at Nsfas Bateka, Uti, please have mercy. Life is tough already on some of us. Let's check out another comment coming from KB. KB is saying, I have not received even a single cent from 2023. My portal has been on registration received ever since. Why can't the status change to rejected so that I can accept that I am going to get funded and try other options? It is so sad indeed. We have another one coming from Boydumetsi. Boydumetsi is saying that throughout my academic year, I used different bursary schemes. I used KPMG and AWCA and SOA. Nsfas never loved me, even after my dad lost his job. That is so sad. We hope Ilita Lizavela. We also have the last one coming from Jack Mabuza. Jack Mabuza is saying, I was funding myself, so I had to register a small number of modules a year, and it took me 5 years to complete a 3-year course, all because I could not get funding from Nsfas and I needed it. Those are some of the comments coming from young people Besbalele, voicing out their concerns and grievances kuye Nsfas. And I mean, I'm joined by Itumeleng Moloyi, who has a success story rather from Fundi, and she was able to complete her studies through their bursary scheme. Itu, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm superb.
Yes, we are also superb. I mean, we had a last comment coming from Jack Mabuza. Jack Mabuza is saying that, I mean, he had to fund himself. I mean, do you think that young people should explore other options, and do you feel that enough awareness is out there for other alternatives besides Nsfas?
To be honest, I don't think there is enough alternatives out there. But what I rather would encourage is to do research while you are still in matric. And I think also one of the things that that we find ourselves as a student is that we wait
for all the magic instead of doing the research. Yes, continue.
We wait for I don't know. So let's just do our research, make sure about the funding, and everything else I think will just eventually fall into place.
Yes, I mean, as much as you're saying that we should do research, especially if you're doing your matric, I mean, you are, as much as this is said, you know, you are the light at the end of the tunnel, because I mean, you actually got your bursary from Fundi. I want you to share with us, I mean, your journey. I mean, were you doing research? Were you rejected by Nsfas? Did you meet the requirements? Share with us.
First of all, it wasn't really a bursary, it was a student loan rather.
Okay.
Yes. So what happened is that during I was self-funded in my first year. And then I think a year later into my studies, I discovered Fundi through a family member. So my dad and I went through the application process, and thereafter Fundi was able to fund my studies throughout the duration of my course.
Oh, amazing. And what are you doing now?
Currently, I'm looking forward to going back to school. I did study performing arts, so I just want to divert and study something different.
Oh, amazing. And I mean, let's talk on a progressive note, because I mean, we had Mr. Sibanda on the table sharing about financial education. I mean, hearing a comment from Jack Mabuza saying that he actually had to fund himself. I mean, do you think that maybe as young people, we should start saving money to sort of go that route? And I mean, what is important? I mean, why is it important that we also get financial education?
I don't think we deserve to go through that self-funding situation as students. However, I think also, like I had mentioned earlier, let's just normalize doing research. Also, we do have work pay. You know, you can still work and get your fees paid through companies, and yeah.
And I mean, we cannot leave behind the mental breakdown that comes with all of this. I mean, we have over 1,000 of students who are still waiting for their registration, because I mean, this new payment mechanism from Nsfas is really causing delay. And we also have the Northwest University that is saying, no, we have closed down, we're not accepting any registrations. I mean, what sort of advice would you give students, you know, especially looking at their mental health?
I myself is also a victim of mental health, you know, particularly caused by all the admin that you go through, you know, when you're about to start studying. But all I can say right now is that giving up is not an option. You know, push the button until you've exhausted all your options. Also, I think we don't exhaust all our options. You know, let's just normalize pushing and not giving up. It eventually falls into place. I mean, look at me. I didn't know that Fundi would come and rescue me.
Yeah. Thanks so much to Fundi, because I mean today we have this amazing Itu with a bright future. Thank you so much for joining us, Itu, and I mean we wish you all the best. And Apo Ekaya, remember that we're going to give you some plug, because I mean a lot of you, are defunded and a lot of you are looking for bursary options. Apa Expressions, we actually plug you right after the break. Make sure that you do not move a muscle. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Mbugeli. You are still watching Expressions right here now on SABC 1. I did promise you before we went to the break, in Dogbana, we're going to take a look at some of other bursary schemes that are available. You know, as a young person, we are definitely going to plug you up our Expressions. Let's take a look at some of the bursary schemes that are available. We have the AMSCOR External Bursary Scheme. Closing date is on the 2nd of February. And we also have Ikibela Bursary February, which will be available throughout the month of February. The last one that we have is the Knysna Municipality Mayoral Bursary, which will be available during the course of the year, and that is 2024. For more information, you visit the website that says www.allbursaries.co.za. I mean, we did ask you, Umbuzo, should students consider other options that are available? We are going to have the poll results. 80% of you said yes and 20% of you said no. Your voice matters, Mbukeli Apo Ekaya. Make sure that you exercise those 3 little fingers. Let us know what do you think about the conversation that we have namhlanje. I'm going to throw back at Afileni with Liema.
Thank you very much, Kalosa. Well, still so much to talk about, but unfortunately, there's not really that much of time. But as we wrap it up, gentlemen, and also to you, lady, 80% say we should actually venture into other, funding options. But I want to ask, particularly to you, Sesekelo, about, the utterances by the minister, Utato Blade and Zamante. He spoke about the missing middle funding. What is that all about?
So you have students who fall under the low income category, and then you have others above the high income category, and then the students in the middle. And those are the ones that meet the... So basically, remember, Nsfas offers the funding. It's at 350 Rand per year, 350 grand per year. The students who meet that but don't exceed it as much, so they just fall in the middle. They're not affluent, but they're not also below the poverty line. And I think the idea is very thoughtful, and I do think it does cover a lot of students, and it will help out a lot, because remember, in as much as a parent or family can have that income at 350 grand per year, they have other expenses. They may have more than one child, or maybe 4 or 5 children. So then when students submit the pay slip, they get defunded or they don't get approved. And I think the idea that Blaine Demanze has brought up is very thoughtful and meaningful, and it will go a very long way.
And then in terms of implementation then, or even perhaps intervention from yourselves as the SLC, what are you going to do to ensure that all of those are implemented and in fact bear fruit in terms of we see many students going back to school and are funded?
True. I think this is a point where we need to ask that these funding institutions communicate more. We can't help students if you don't know what's going on with Nsfas. For example, in my university, we have a lot of queries regarding to Nsfas as well. But you tend to, whenever they come to you, we always say it's above us. It's above us. We don't know how to do. They go to the finance offices. They say, we don't know what to do. Just keep on checking Nsfas, keep on emailing, keep checking the portal. So again, it just comes down to Nsfas providing more information to us. With regards to implementation, they should let us know exactly who qualifies to be missing middle, exactly what is the amount, exactly what is the criteria, and then communicate that to us so we can help students better.
Okay, so for now, as it stands, there's a bit of cloudiness when it comes to what that particular criteria criteria is?
Exactly, because it's only been communicated through the speech he gave out.
Okay.
But with regards to the actual implementation, the strategies, you know, the steps, the procedures, we have nothing to speak on.
Okay. Mr. Smanda, as we wrap it up, I mean, you know, what's your advice to young people, particularly students, ingakumbi, when we are going to approach this academic year? Of course, not all of them are going to be accepted by Nsfas. Just a word of encouragement for them to also pursue other funding options.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think that as much as we rely on institutions to give us bursaries, we can run campaigns. Like, can I use a campaign that we run? We've got a campaign called 10 Rand Goes a Long Way.
Okay, the social media one?
Yes, social media, yes. And so we've been able to help over 1,000 students. And why is that important? You find that even though there are bursaries, there are hidden costs like registrations. Some bursaries are available, but only if you're registered. And you find that some children come from homes where they can't even afford registration fees. And so with 10 Rand Goes a Long Way, such campaigns, you can actually help students to get registration and over the line, and they qualify for that. And then secondly, I would refer them, we've got a portal called fundiconnect.co.za.
Okay.
There are bursaries there. As I spoke to our team today, I found that there are about 166 bursaries available.
So that till this day?
Till this afternoon.
Okay.
So that is available for the taking. And there are other institutions, like this lady, she mentioned some, and I think really go to company websites and explore all bursary options. And a basic Google search will help as well.
Will help, will go a long way, absolutely.
Yes.
Particularly when we have this conversation about having access, rather, to a variety, rather, of information. Hlonipho, your last word, particularly with students that are battling to find funding, rather, that have been rejected by Nsfas, in terms of a word to them, to encourage them to go after the other alternatives there.
Yeah, like I said, students must we encourage that they explore other options. We have private bursaries, as we've already mentioned. We also have municipal, provincial bursaries. We also encourage that they can go on social media, start campaigns, as he has already alluded to. They must start campaigns, because when we see the issue of the missing middle, there is a budget cut of 10% at Nsfas, and that is 13.5 billion. And when we look at that, we appreciate and welcome the 3.5 billion that is directed to the missing middle. The missing middle, which is 350 to 600,000 student income bracket, right? So we appreciate that, but we can see that we're being ripped off when we look at it generally, because now there's this 13% that is being cut off, 13.5 billion that is being cut off, and then we have a 3.5 billion for the missing middle student, and then there's a 10% that is 10 billion that is taken away. So we can see that in actual fact, we are being ripped off by the government. They're not putting effort to ensure that there is more funding and there is more access to institutions of higher learning.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. Unfortunately, like I said, we have plenty to talk about, but unfortunately, there's not much time. But thank you very much for joining us. And hopefully, before the academic year, rather, Colossa for 2024 begins, abafundi will be sorted, hopefully.
I mean, with a 3.8 billion, this shouldn't be an issue, Liema. But Apoyakaya, wish you the very best. I mean, we'll leave you behind with Zugo SA Nengoma Yake Etum Konto.
Bambananam Iranam Walumkondo ufincile Hambana Nkosi nyaphuma Nkosi Nkosi ndiyaphuma yini ofa hamba nam Nkosi ndiyaphuma Nkosi ndiyaphuma phuma nam Nkosi ndiyaphuma yini ofa zonke esibekelwe mna nalapho igama lam libizwa khona mababhideke badane bahlaseke abasungula umphefumulo wami mababhideke badane bahlaseke onke amatholo ayokhoba phambi kwakho Nkosi ndiyaphuma phuma nami Yehova Nkosi ndiyaphuma loya ngaphi mangishiwa nguwe Yehova phuma nami Yehova Nkosi ndiyaphuma undixolele izono zami njengoba nami ndibaxolela abantu nayo ungandingenise kuhendweni zundisindise enkohlakalweni ngoba kumkani bobakhona amandla ngawakho amen amen amen